Thank you. It was Emily Dickinson who wrote, "Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. The carrot held but just ourselves and immortality." But Woody Allen said, "I don't want to achieve immortality through my work. I want to achieve it through not dying." And Mark Twain wrote, "Let us endeavor to live that when we come to die, even the undertaker will be sorry." Another view from John Updike. "It came to me the other day, were I to die, no one would say, 'Oh, what a shame, so young, so full of promise, depths unplumbable.' Instead, a shrug and tearless eyes will greet my overdue demise. The wide response will be, 'I know, I thought he died a while ago.' For life's a shabby subterfuge, and death is real and dark and huge. The shock of it will register nowhere but where it will occur." And Elizabeth Kubler-Ross on Death and Dying said, "For someone who has not first loved, death will always be too soon. Whereas for those who have entered into life's energies, which very much include love, that fear doesn't exist." A year before he died, Steve Jobs said, "Even people who want to go to heaven don't want to get there. And yet death is the destination we all share. No one's ever escaped it. And that is as it should be, because death is very likely the single best invention of life. It is life's change agent. It clears out the old to make way for the new. Right now, the new is you. But someday, not too long from now, you will gradually become the old and be cleared away. Sorry to be so dramatic, but it's quite true. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life." You're much richer than the sum of your material assets, yet your legal will only addresses the question, what do I want my loved ones to have? One form a legacy might take is what's called an ethical will, the Jewish custom of leaving a written spiritual legacy for one's children. One rabbi puts it this way: parents write a letter to their children in which they would try to sum up all that they had learned in life, and in which they would try to express what they wanted most for and from their children. They leave these letters behind because they believed that the wisdom they had acquired was just as much a part of the legacy they wanted to leave their children as were all their material possessions. An ethical will is not an easy thing to write. One must look inward to see what are the essential truths one has learned in a lifetime. An ethical will is not an easy thing to receive. There is the temptation, an almost irresistible one, for parents to try to persuade after death what they were unable to persuade during life. An ethical will is a personal legacy, a letter that transmits the non-material assets that are also of great importance: your values, your story, the lessons life has taught you. Not everyone can pass along a financial legacy, but everyone can transmit some of the richness of life by creating an ethical will. Here's what one man said on receiving one.
About 10 years ago, I visited my parents in Florida soon after my father was diagnosed with lung cancer. I asked him 2 questions. Dad, is there anything you haven't done that you'd like to do while you are still feeling okay? He replied, just to have another 10 or 15 years of retirement. We both smiled, a half smile, hoping that this would be true, while being realistic that this was unlikely to happen. My second question, Dad, at some point, would you write a letter to me that talks about things that have been important to you in your life? He thought that was a strange request. He was never much of a letter writer. He said he would think about it. 8 months later, about a month before he died, he sent me the letter I'd asked for. He wrote about the importance of working hard, being honest, his children getting the education he never had, helping others in need, and sticking by your family. The memories of my father come flooding back whenever I read this letter. Although it's only a couple of handwritten pages long, it's a precious gift whose value can't be quantified. I now know that what my father wrote to me, the legacy of his values, was his ethical will.
I should also add that with newer technologies, many people now live such ethical messages in an audio and or video format. One good example of an ethical will is found in the last will and testament of Mary McLeod Bethune, born in July of 1875 in South Carolina. She was one of 17 children, former slaves. She worked in the cotton fields with her family, married Albertus Bethune and had a son. She founded what is now Bethune-Cookman College in 1904 and served as its president for almost 40 years. She had many other positions, including NAACP vice president. She died in 1955. Her ethical will was written for her people. The custom at the time was to call them Negroes, but I feel it speaks to all of us. Here are some excerpts.
I leave you love. Love builds. It is positive and helpful. It is more beneficial than hate. Injuries quickly forgotten, quickly pass away. Loving your neighbor means being interracial, interreligious, and international. I leave you hope. Yesterday, our ancestors endured the degradation of slavery, yet they retained their dignity. Today, we direct our economic and political strength toward winning a more abundant and secure life. Tomorrow will be a better world. This I believe with all my heart. I leave you the challenge of developing confidence in one another. As long as we are hemmed into racial blocks by prejudice and pressure, it will be necessary to band together for economic betterment. Economic separatism cannot be tolerated in this enlightened age. I leave you a thirst for education. Knowledge is the prime need of the hour. I leave you respect for the uses of power. We live in a world which respects power above all things. Power intelligently directed can lead to more freedom. Unwisely directed, it can be a dreadful, destructive force. It has always been my first concern that power should be placed on the side of human justice. I leave you faith. Faith is the first factor in a life devoted to service. Without faith, nothing is possible. With it, nothing is impossible. I leave you dignity. I want us to maintain our human dignity at all costs. We must make an effort to be less race-conscious and more conscious of individual and human values. If I have a legacy to leave my people, it is my philosophy of living and serving. As I face tomorrow, I am content, for I think I have spent my life well. I pray now that my philosophy may be helpful to those who share my vision of a world of peace, progress, brotherhood, and love.
A legacy embodies your strengths, your purpose, and it makes your spiritual gift to coming generations. Then you have to let it go. A legacy is a gift with its own destiny. In the face of mortality, you give up control and put your faith in the future. W.H. Auden said it more simply, if we really want to live, we better start at once to try. If we don't, it doesn't matter, but we better start to die. Well, we've reached the point for more or less famous last words, and here are some, more or less in rhyme. It's It's all been very interesting, declared Lady Wortley Montague. Examining his sick room, Oscar Wilde railed, either that wallpaper goes or I do. Told the angels were waiting for him, Ethan Allen quipped, let him wait. I am so very happy, Gerard Manley Hopkins cooed. Bertha pleaded for more light, more light. Madame de Pompadour cried out to God, wait a minute, and rouged her cheeks red. I suppose I am turning into a god, the dying Emperor Vespasian said. Henry James succumbing to a massive stroke. So it has come, the distinguished thing. Pancho Villa pleaded, don't let it end like this. Tell him I said something. Gertrude to Alice B. What is the answer? In that case, what is the question? If this is dying, I don't think much of it, muttered White and Strachey when undone. Julius Caesar managed et tu, Brute. Edmund Kean, dying is easy. Comedy is hard. Chekhov, it's been so long since I've had champagne. Goethe, more light, then departed. Finally, there was a man who had worked all of his life and was a real miser when it came to his money. He loved money more than anything, and just before he died, he said to his wife, now listen, when I die, I want you to take all my money and put it in the casket with me. Because I want to take my money to the afterlife with me. And so he got his wife to promise him with all of her heart that when he died, she would put all the money in the casket with him. One day he died. Stretched out in the casket, the wife was sitting there in black and her friend was sitting next to her. When they finished the ceremony, just before the undertaker got ready to close the casket, the wife said, wait, just a minute. She had a box with her. She came over with the box and put it in the casket. Then the undertakers locked the casket down, rolled it away, and her friend said, girl, I know you weren't foolish enough to put all that money in there with that man. She said, listen, I can't lie. I promised him that I was going to put his money in that casket with him, and that's just what I did. Her friend was amazed. You mean to tell me you put all his money in the casket with him? I sure did, said his wife. I wrote him a check. Your checks and cash will now be gratefully received for the ongoing work of this congregation.